one, sorry, depends where you are. Looking forward to this to the school. So I suggest that I think now everybody is admitted to the school. So I guess that we should start. So welcome to this first edition of the South African Netherlands Cybersecurity School, the first version of this school. Welcome to all. My name is Michel Rademaker. I'm the Executive Director of the Hague Center for Security Studies, and I'm one of the co-organizers of this school, together with my team from the Netherlands, which is Berend Kwak and Stephanie Govaers. And from Stellenbosch University, it's Noël Curling, Nanette, and Professor Bruce Watson. And so far, we have proven to be a very successful team because we have a lot of participants subscribed to the school. I would also like to thank very much Professor Kashukan Rajaratnam, the director of the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking, because that is, I think, an important placeholder for this school, maybe also for the next coming years. At the same time, we also have some other partners that have provided challenges, and later on I will explain a bit further on that. But I'd like to mention them all three, which is Liquid C2, Unati Motiba, Data Grade, Justin Westcott, and Cybersecurity Institute, Elmarie Bierman. They provided a challenge, but they also are lecturers of this school. It is great to have so many subscribers. So for the first year, we already touched 1,890, which is amazing. We thought to have a success by 300, to be honest, but we are above expectations. So I'm really questioning myself, how big will be the numbers next year? Another, I think, nice observation is that we have participants from 25 African countries, and all in all, 44 countries in total, which again is amazing. You will be offering a diverse and comprehensive program provided by excellent speakers. And I'll come back to that later a bit during this inaugural. But for now, I'd like to hand over, and I'm very happy to do that, to Mr. Joost Bunk, who is the of the Dutch Embassy to South Africa. He has been instrumental to the school. Without him and his support and enthusiasm, this school could not have taken place anyway. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Joost Bunk, because he will be the moderator of today's inaugural. So please, Joost, the floor is yours. I'll be closing my camera now, and looking forward to this inaugural. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Michel, and dear colleagues, dear students, dear excellencies, professor, dear panelists, students, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. My name is Joost Bunk, and together with the colleagues from the Hague Center for Strategic Studies and Stellenbosch University, we have been putting this event together over the past year. It's therefore for me a true honor to welcome you all to the inaugural meeting of the South African Netherlands Cyber School. We are proud to welcome over 1,800 participants from more than 24 African countries across the continent, and also a number of participants from beyond, from Brazil to Japan and from Nepal to the Netherlands, a true international gathering of cyber enthusiasts. The coming weeks are going to be an exciting and immersive deep dive into cybersecurity through lectures and expert sessions. And it's not only lectures. In the program, there are also challenges, And I would like to thank our challenge partners, DataGrade, Liquid C2, and the Cybersecurity Institute for providing challenges that will test your cyber skills. Looking at the speakers and the topics of the coming 6 weeks, I believe that we got the best, the brightest, and the latest in this field. A big word of thanks to all the lecturers and experts for making time in their busy schedules for the school. But now for the official part. I would like to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Madonsela, Ambassador of South Africa to the Netherlands, to the digital floor to deliver his inaugural address. Thank you, Ambassador, and the floor is yours.
Director of Proceedings, Michael Radema of the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, Moderator, Mr. Joost Bank, First Secretary of the Netherlands, Embassy in Pretoria, Your Excellency, my colleague, Ambassador Dionevard, Vice Rector of the University of Stellenbosch, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you all. Thank you for the kind invitation to my colleague, Ambassador, and I to attend this opening segment to render some welcoming remarks on this occasion of the inaugural session of the South Africa Netherlands Cybersecurity School, organized by the Dutch and South African organizations. As I understand it, this is organized for students and young to mid-career professionals who are interested in matters of cybersecurity. To be sure, all of us need to equip ourselves with at least the basic requisite knowledge and understanding of the cyberspace in which we operate our business today, and be curious about the risks related to it and the threats that continually affect it. The world today is littered with examples wherein the cyberspace has reportedly been tampered with for nefarious purposes. As technological developments advance into various aspects of people's lives, I'm talking here about personal lives as well, including the well-being of nations, affecting matters of national security, we have observed cyber attacks being deployed in the perpetration of crimes of fraud and corruption, as well as in situations of war and the manipulation of electoral outcomes. Evidently, threats to the cyberspace know no boundaries, which is why continuous engagement in platforms such as this remains very important to exchange ideas on how to secure and promote the use of the cyberspace for peaceful purposes. Several years ago, South Africa identified cybersecurity as a key national priority that must be achieved. To that end, South Africa initiated a process which culminated in the approval in 2012 of the National Cybersecurity Policy Framework as its guiding document on cyber matters. Ever since, South Africa has forged collaboration with the private sector in the fields of digitalization and cybersecurity, including the promotion of knowledge exchange in the domestic environment. In that context, South Africa is much encouraged by the process that is underway towards the conclusion of a joint declaration of intent on enhancing collaboration within the fields of cyberspace and digital technologies. This is indeed a welcome development. To be sure, South Africa harbors grave concerns over the risks associated with the proliferation of cybercrime in various parts of South African life, manifesting in the lack of protection of personal information and the challenges that come with regulating the cybersecurity environment. To address these concerns, government is working together with private sector with the private sector to proactively draft policies and legislation aimed at stemming the tide of these troubles. As South Africa, we still have a long way to go, but we have thus far made encouraging progress, most of which places us on par with international best practice and standards. Among other things, we have rationalized cybercrime legislation with the passing of the Protection of Private Information in 2013 and the Cybercrime Act in 2020. Against the backdrop of where we come from, the establishment of the South Africa Netherlands Cybersecurity School, led by Stellenbosch University and the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, which is designed to foster knowledge exchange and capacity building between our countries, has also been hailed by Minister Pandor as a step in the right direction. In the premises, I'm certain that your involvement with the South Africa Netherlands Cyber Security School will equip you with a deeper understanding and appreciation of the cybersecurity landscape and cover topics such as data protection, consumer protection, cybercrime, interception of communication, and cyber defense. In this sense, South Africa welcomes the joint declaration of intent on enhanced cooperation with the Netherlands in the fields of cyberspace, the main intent of which is to establish a framework for the enhancement of relations and cooperation in the field of cyber and digital technologies. We pursue our strong bilateral relations with the broader Dutch society. We are grateful of the level of cooperation between our two countries on international and bilateral dialogues, initiatives, and policy frameworks addressing cyber and digital technologies. Through the established collaborations, we can build the requisite capacity, initiate new research, and tap into new educational and innovative opportunities. As Minister Pandor reminded us during the Joint Commission for Cooperation held in October, on the margins of the historic state visit by the Dutch royal couple to South Africa, women empowerment must always guide our efforts. I wish all participants successful deliberation and inspiration to find innovative ways to better strengthen our cybersecurity. I thank you all for your attention, and I truly send my best wishes from here in The Hague. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for these encouraging words and highlighting the efforts of South Africa and the Netherlands and underlining the importance of female empowerment in this space. I would like now to invite Her Excellency Ambassador Joanne Doornewaard, Ambassador of the Netherlands in South Africa, to deliver her inaugural address. Ambassador, the digital floor is yours.
Thank you, Joost. Dear Ambassador Manoncela, dear Professor Rajaratnam, distinguished panelists and the organization committee, but most importantly, dear students. Going through the program of the school, I can only say that I'm very envious of the very exciting weeks ahead of you. As the fourth industrial revolution is in full swing, a 6-week course on subjects like post-quantum cryptography, artificial intelligence, cyber defense, and digital transformation are highly topical, and expertise in these matters is greatly sought after. I'm very happy to see that this cyber school has brought students, companies, and experts from South Africa, the Netherlands, and beyond together to jointly learn and collaborate on the many cyber questions laying ahead of us. I believe that this spirit of international collaboration is very much needed to address the many challenges stemming from an ever more digital world. I think the cyber collaboration through the challenges, and I want to express my gratitude to the challenge partners of the school, Liquid C2, the Cybersecurity Institute, and DataGrade, for bringing real-world cybersecurity challenges to our students and contributing to immersive learning and collaborative problem solving. International collaboration, as laid out in the international cyber strategy of our government, is key for the Netherlands in maintaining a worldwide open, free and secure internet, where human rights and democratic principles are protected. We are proud to join forces on this with South Africa, represented here today by my colleague Ambassador Manoncela. Over the last years, we have worked with South Africa in the UN, regionally and bilaterally on cybersecurity, and we look forward to expand this cooperation in the coming years. Digitalization cuts costs, creates economic opportunities and enhances the investment climate of countries, assisting further development. And it's therefore crucial to jointly develop capacity in this field, for now and for the future. As with many challenges today, it's the new generation, and that's you guys there and girls, that will see most of its impact. And it's therefore crucial to engage you, to help you and support you. And to assist you, we should not only focus on coding and hard skills, but also on soft skills, like teamwork, communication, and so on. And a special lecture will dive into this, and so will the challenges. And it's often a diverse team that will perform best. So I am happy to see that later today, this stellar panel with so many female cyber leaders will address this important topic. So let me conclude. I wish all the participants all the best for the coming weeks. Please engage, collaborate, and make the best of it. And who knows, I might pop in 1 or 2 lectures to get some updates myself. Thank you and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Doornwaard, for your encouraging words. I would like now to give the digital floor to Professor Rajaratnam from our most appreciated partner organization, Stellenbosch University. The professor is the director of the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking. Prof, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Bank. Greetings to you, Ambassadors Manoncela and Doornwaard, organizers, lecturers, and students. As we say in South Africa, all protocols observed. I'm Kanchman Rajaratnam, the director of the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking, and an associate professor in the Department of Statistics and Actuarial Science at the university. Stellenbosch University, through the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking, is proud to be part of the South African Netherlands Cybersecurity School in support of its efforts to secure cyberspace and work to ensure cooperation and stability in international cyberspace. But more than that, the school seeks to broaden access to both high-level cyber awareness and cybersecurity as a potential career choice. The School for Data Science and Computational Thinking was launched with a vision to be a world-class institution in data science and computational thinking in and for Africa. There are 3 important parts to this vision, and let me explain this in the context of this cybersecurity school. World-class institution, the participation of the various organizations and the organizing institutions talks to the world-classness of the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking. The second part of the vision is data science and computational thinking. We recognize the importance of both research and education in the digital domain and of preparing the future workforce for the challenges and opportunities afforded by the 4th industrial revolution. Our participation with this cybersecurity school demonstrates our commitment to these imperatives. Thirdly, in and for Africa. The intent of the school is to build human capacity in this corner of the continent while collaborating with the rest of the world. We have students not only from South Africa, but from SADC or SADC and beyond. Indeed, the school speaks to the vision of the School for Data Science and Computational Thinking. I want to briefly touch on why cybersecurity is vital for South Africa and in general for Africa. Cybersecurity is the practice of defending our computers, networks, data, and devices from unauthorized access, manipulation, or damage. It is not only a technical issue, but also a social, economic, and political one. Cybersecurity affects our personal privacy, our national security, our business competitiveness, and our regional stability. Africa is a continent of immense potential, with a young and dynamic population, a rich and diverse culture, and abundant natural resources. However, Africa also faces many challenges, such as poverty, inequality, corruption, conflict, and disease. These challenges make Africa more vulnerable to cyber attacks, which can undermine our development, disrupt our services, and endanger our lives. Therefore, we need to take cybersecurity seriously and invest in building our capacity, awareness, and resilience. One way to do this is to build human capacity in this domain. This is where the school plays a major role. Additionally, let me emphasize, South Africa or any country cannot do this alone. It's a global space. The cyberspace is global, and hence it requires partnership across the world. So it is with good heart that I hear there are 44 countries from Africa and many beyond Africa. This school is a multifaceted partnership which aims at bringing together leading cybersecurity policymakers, practitioners, and researchers to present a unique and challenging international course to students throughout Southern Africa and the Netherlands and beyond. As a leading global teaching and research institution, Stellenbosch University is committed to engagement on the African continent, and as such, we're extremely pleased to welcome students from across the globe to the cybersecurity school. We would like to thank many experts and companies who have partnered with us to provide students with this unique insights and an educational experience, which includes immersive opportunities to hone their skills through the challenges and mentorship opportunity which the cybersecurity school provides. We are grateful for your time. We would also like to thank the Embassy of Kingdom of the Netherlands in South Africa, the Department of International Cooperation and Development in South Africa or from South Africa, and the Hague Secretary for Security Studies for their role in making the cybersecurity school a reality. A special thanks to Noel van der Walt-Cowling, whose expertise and hard work from Stellenbosch's side has made the school a reality. I believe you will meet her in the next session. In closing, I would like to wish the students a successful and enjoyable course and reiterate what the two ambassadors said, opportunities for women. And it is with good heart I see the next session is all female. With that, I would like to thank you and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Professor, for these kind words and setting the stage and scene on cybersecurity. Thank you, ambassadors and professor, for your inaugural remarks, marking the official opening of our school. Let me now continue to the second part of our inaugural session. I want to make use to introduce and give the mic to my partner in crime for this cyber school, Noel Cowling, who will moderate the panel discussion on diversity in the cyber workforce. But before I do that, I want to flag that I am really enjoying all these remarks from people saying hello from wherever they are, stating who they are. So please continue this because it really gives an indication of where everybody is from and who we are engaging with. So let us now move on to the next panel and give the floor to Noel. Thank you.
Thank you, Joost. Sorry, I've got something sticking here. Thank you, everybody, and to the ambassadors and Professor Rajaratnam, Joost, for opening for us. Very insightful session, and we thank you for your time. And as you know, I think the big focus today, of course, is on the students. And to all the students who registered and to all the students who are here today, yeah, you guys really blew our hair back. We've got such a wonderful response. And I really believe that you're going to find this cybersecurity school incredibly insightful. It is a great platform either to take your career forward or to introduce yourself to cybersecurity. So without further ado, I would like to ask my fellow panelists to come online. We're going to be discussing diversity in the cybersecurity workforce today. So if I could just welcome all four of the panelists into the room, please. And then I will introduce you to everybody. We're just waiting for one panelist to come in. I hope that I'm seeing correctly. Sorry, just going to coordinate something quickly. I'm looking for Mrs. Peters to be admitted into the room, please. In the meantime, if I may, I will then start with the introductions while we wait. So first up is Ms. Nanjira Sambuli, who we've walked quite a long road together now. Nanjira, Partners in Crime on the Cyber Risk and Digital Financial Inclusion Project. Nanjira Sambuli is a fellow at the Technology and International Affairs Program at the Carnegie Institute, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, where she conducts a range of really, really in-depth and exciting research across various technology domains. And Nanjira, we really welcome you today. Thank you for joining us all the way from Nairobi. Yes, it's good to have you on board. Next up, I would like to welcome Carissa Varma. Carissa is the Managing Executive of Cybersecurity at Vodacom, South Africa. And Carissa, it's a real pleasure to have you on board today. Carissa is also the lead at Women in Cyber, the organization called Women in Cybersecurity in South Africa, where she plays an indispensable role, gives up so much of her time to promoting the role of women in cyber, but also a leader in our local cybersecurity industry. So Carissa, we really do welcome you today. And then third, but not least, Mrs. Nompumelelo Khumalo, who is the head of cybersecurity operations at Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. Another really important position. I think Nompumelelo is going to share with us some really deep insights into what it's like to be a really technical player in cybersecurity, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us all the way from Johannesburg, Ms. Khumalo. It's a pleasure to have you on board. And then finally, we would like to welcome our guest from the Netherlands, Mrs. Marcia Pieters. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. Ms. Pieters is the head of international cyber policy at the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we welcome you, and we're going to enjoy the insights from everybody on this panel. If it is possible to record this panel, the students have requested it. I don't know if anybody has an objection to that. If there are any of the speakers, if there are no objections, could I just ask the technical staff in the background to please record the panel so that we can make it available for posterity's sake to registered students, please? Thank you.
Being
Thank
recorded.
you, Stephanie. And there's one of my great colleagues, Stephanie, whoever it's in the background, who's done so much to make today possible. So without further ado, as I said, we're going to jump in now, and we're going to be talking about diversity in the cybersecurity workforce. I think, first of all, diversity means a lot of things, a lot of different things to different people. So in the context of this discussion, we're going to be looking at, obviously, the role of women, getting more women into the cybersecurity workspace. There's a global shortage of cybersecurity professionals, and we really need to start tapping into all the talent that's out there on both sides of the gender divide. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. But then we're also going to be talking about neurodiverse skills, people who think differently, people with dyspraxia or dyslexia or autism. And what do they bring to the cybersecurity workforce, and how do we support their entry and longevity in this workforce, and why are they so important? And then finally, we're going to have a discussion that touches each and every person in this room, and that is, are there barriers to entry into the cybersecurity workforce? What are they? And how do we lower those barriers? What do we do about it? At some point, I'm going to also open the floor to the students to actually put their questions in the chat and ask the panelists some questions. I mean, you have four global leading cybersecurity minds here. I'm sure you're going to have questions for them. So listen carefully, and when I say it's time to ask questions, then you can just type them in the chat and we'll see how many we've got time for. But to kick off, I'm going to start with you, please, Mrs. Marcia, if I may. And, you obviously occupy a very senior position. So from your view, if you could tell us, cyber diplomacy itself is one of these really interesting subfields of cybersecurity. And this is the thing about cybersecurity. It's got so many subfields. It's really got space on the field for everybody. So within the field of cyber diplomacy, what does the gender balance look like, both from the Netherlands, but also from your perspective of perhaps other countries? I'm sure you go to all these meetings like the OWG and all these sort of things, and you see many people. And then following up on that, what is it that you're doing in the Netherlands with your team to promote diversity and inclusion? Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And I'm very happy to be in this meeting with all of you. I would like to thank the lecturers and also the students for being here today. You can hear me, right, Joanne? Is the sound is good?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Well, first, maybe I would like to answer your question about the gender balance in the field of cyber diplomacy. In the Netherlands, we see that 21% of the employees in ICT jobs are women. And there is a difference, I have to say, between the technical ICT and the diplomacy side of it. If we look at the Dutch government, we find cyber expertise in different governmental agencies like the Ministry of Economic Affairs, of Justice, and also in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And while female representation is still rather low at a more technical level, for example, in our computer emergency response team, the CERT, we find more women at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs where we focus on diplomacy. So if you see the more negotiating side of the story, we see a higher representation of women. So for example, in my team, I have a team of 16 and 6 of them, like 38%, are women. And you also asked me, like, what do you see in other countries?
Yes.
Well, we are very fortunate of having such a big team on cyber diplomacy, covering the response side, but also the multilateral norms. And so we are very happy with that, but also with other European countries, but also countries outside of Europe. You don't see teams that are so large and where we find so many people. So I'm very I know that, but still, it would be very interesting to share experiences. And therefore, what we've decided to do together with 4 other donor countries is to promote women representatives in the Open-Ended Working Group in the First Commission of the United Nations. Because before, we saw, like in 2020, we saw that approximately 23% of the interventions were done by women. And so we thought, maybe we should promote that more and fund women to actually go and be present at the Open-Ended Working Group, but also to have trainings. And actually that worked out extremely well. In 2022, we saw 52% of the interventions were done by women. But not only that, we also saw countries that didn't, who were not part of the discussion before, were suddenly taking the floor. You saw also women coming together and trying to have national statements with different countries together, so have more of a regional statement. And also they have now a big network of women who go there, and as soon as we are in New York, we always know where to find each other, and there's always a time set where we see each other and also can exchange views. And then you also asked me what do I do in my team?
To promote diversity and inclusion.
For diversity and inclusion. Well, what we try to do is when we post job vacancies, that we underline the importance of D&I. we organize meetings with specialists to underline the importance of D&I, and also try, and it's very difficult, but also try to mirror the diversity in society. And maybe in the area of cyber, it's quite difficult as well, because, you know, it's still mainly male dominant. We also focus on the advantages of having a gender balance and an inclusive team. So you have more creativity, you have more perspectives, more solutions, but what you also have is more opinions. So you need more time to actually together find a balance, and you know, yeah, you know, it really takes more time, and you have to give the floor to everyone and express their points of view. Let me see. Yeah. What we also do is, within our team, we have meetings specifically focusing on the D&I themes, such as inclusion, but also we've had a report on racism within our ministry. That was also discussed within our team and within the ministry itself. Strength of different personalities within our team. So yeah, so this is how we try to yeah, to make time for it and discuss.
Thank you, Marcia. You've set a very nice foundation for us, and you've raised some exceedingly important issues. And so, Nanjira, I'm going to pick on you next. So my question to you is this: your work across several themes in terms of tech policy, as well as across several African states, what is your sense of female leadership at senior industry and government levels in these states?
I'll start with a story just to illustrate how that's looking. A couple of years ago, when I worked at the World Wide Web Foundation, and I was focusing specifically on advancing digital gender equality, we wanted to do some work with the governments across East and Southern Africa around understanding gender and ICT from a policy level. And we invited ministries of ICT and the regulators to really emphasize bringing in people who are working on gender and ICT, and as much as possible to draw from the ministries and the technical sides of things. In a number of countries, that request went straight to HR. They considered it as a HR issue, and they sent heads of HR, who tend to be women, which was okay. But what it was illustrating to us was the request was interpreted as, the moment the word gender was seen, this is a women's issue, and therefore it's first processed through HR. Just to say that even at perception level, we have a lot of work to do to help illustrate what it is when we talk about gender divides that emerge in even spheres as technical as technology and ICT. So we have seen, small strides here and there. Corporates are getting a lot more women in C-suite, in technical, sort of fields, and wearing technical hats. We are seeing slow but steady movement in government around getting women as represented, not just as head of HR or gender focused, but giving these sort of gender responsive roles. And this is the thing that has been very important to help situate in tech policy, that gender is not a side department, it's not an after show, it's not a women's breakfast issue. It's at the core of even how you roll out fiber optic cable. It's at the core of how you will think about cyber strategies, because this is another half of the world that has a view and is experiencing these things and should be shaping them. And so there's still a lot of work to be done in that sphere, especially of sensitizing our governments about why gender or diversity, actually, really, I should say, in the ranks matters. And I would add right there with gender, the second one will be age, but we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Thank you, Nanjira. And I think we are indeed going to cross that bridge. So thank you for that. Your mentioning of, for example, rolling out a fiber, it's probably my second question coming up to you is going to be about population level types of issues. So next up, for Carissa, my question is there a perceptible difference in the cybersecurity workforce and its different work streams? And to a certain extent, Marcio actually already touched on this. In its different work streams in terms of gender representation. For example, governance stream versus a security operations center? If so, if there is a difference, why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Nell. I think, there definitely is a difference. We're getting more women into cybersecurity, but we're getting not enough women into the deeply technical roles and at the senior leadership levels. And so we definitely have more work to do in that space. And your question was, why do I think that is happening? So I think there's three core things that are leading to that. I think the first one is we don't have enough strong role modeling. So a girl growing up, a girl, sitting in a African township somewhere, doesn't have accessible role models that says, cyber is a career that I can do. Here's women that are actually doing it successfully. And it's amazing that we've got this brilliant panel today. Thank you for bringing us together. But this visibility needs to grow, and it needs to go all the way back down into grassroots, so that little girl sitting in that township somewhere knows about the possibility of a woman having a successful technical and leadership career in cybersecurity. So I think that role modeling is really, really important. The second one, I think, still goes to the traditional norms. And if you look at things like childcare, taking care of homes, etc., a lot of men have done a great deal to step in and support and drive and take ownership. However, females are still the primary caregivers in the majority of Africa. So if you look at that, they're carrying the responsibility of taking care of a household, taking care of children, and then on top of that, taking care of their careers. And if you look at a lot of these technical, deeply technical roles, like the SOC role that Mark spoke to, those are around the clock roles. I mean, you can get an incident that happens at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you have a young child, having an incident that happens at 2 o'clock in the morning can be challenging. So I think there's a lot of work that we need to do to put in the structures to support women to be able to prioritize careers that are technical cybersecurity careers. And then the third aspect that I think is leading to this, which leaves me very personally hopeful, is if you look back 20 years, the majority, if not all, of who was in cybersecurity, well, cybersecurity wasn't really a term then, right? It was probably something along the lines of IT security or some IT person that did cybersecurity. But even if you look at technology back then, 20 years, it was predominantly male, if not all male. And so we have got an increasing number of women getting into cybersecurity. So if you look at that bucket of women that have been in cyber, for that 15 to 20 year mark, they are few and far apart. But when I look at the 10 to 15, there's a lot more. And when I look at the 5 to 10, there's a lot more. So that leaves me very hopeful that in the next 5, 10 years, we are moving in the right direction, that if a role looks for someone with 10 years experience or 5 years experience, there's going to be a lot more women that have that experience because we've put in so much of effort in focusing women into this career path. So I think for me, those are three that sort of stand out.
Thanks, Chris. So just to follow up on that, when you speak about the last one, I mean, improvements in the demographies of cybersecurity in South Africa. My question would be, when you specifically refer to the amount of effort that's gone in, is that driven via various levels? For example, government's various equity employment programs also driving that, but also corporate policies. What are the levers, the mechanisms behind that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, big corporates are all, very focused on bridging that gender divide. They're very conscious that it exists, and they're very conscious that we're not where we need to be. I mean, Mark, you spoke about 21% of, people being female in technology in Africa, and in cybersecurity in general, 20% of our cyber workforce globally is female. But when you look at Africa, that percentage is far, far smaller. I mean, I have had the privilege to work across 38 African countries. And in some countries, even being a cyber leader, I found it really, really hard to find the right female talent because it's just not created from the grassroots up. But I think there's a very conscious focus from big corporates across the continent to bridge the divide. It is going to take time. It's going to take that grassroots swell. It's going to take good role modeling. It's going to take support from both public and private sector to actually make the sustainable change that we need to see.
Thank you. That what you brought up about, I I think motherhood specifically, perhaps having small children, and to what extent that becomes a career game changer for women. I think it's quite hard to actually verbalize it properly if it's something you haven't gone through as well. I can remember my son was about 2 months old, my first baby. My husband came home from work one day and I said to him, I've decided I'm not going back to work. And he said to me, no, you are. But I think if he'd left it up to me, I probably wouldn't have at that point. So, I mean, your priorities change. It makes it very difficult, especially in South Africa, to actually, I think, transition back into the workforce, you know, once you've vacated a job. So, Nompumelelo, my question backs into what Chris has just been speaking about. And I think it's a wonderful and inspiring story you've got to tell. Your position, which is deeply technical, what inspired you to pursue this path in cybersecurity? How did that happen?
Okay,
When we're talking about great role models.
Yes, definitely. We do need to, to model for girls out there to say that they do have a place in cybersecurity. They definitely can play a role in cybersecurity. So I think in my story, I mean, previously I had occupied, I started very early, way back then, like Carissa said, it was IT security way back then. So I got introduced into cybersecurity through a learnership program. So way back, I don't even want to say the year, but I got introduced into that, and I just loved what it was all about. You know, back then it was just about confidentiality, integrity, and availability, you know, protecting that. And so I went for my my internship. At the end of the internship, there was a post. I saw a post, and I thought to myself that, you know, what do I have to lose? The worst thing they can say is no, you know? So I took my chance. And at that point in time, my experience was a little bit technical. So I started it in user support and, you know, did a little bit of A+ back then, you know, just to cement myself in terms of understanding deeply about, you know, computers, how they work, and how do you assist users in a company. So when I got the opportunity to do this internship, I knew nothing about IT security. I went in and I learned. And when I saw this post after my year of completing the internship, I thought to myself, I mean, what do I have to lose? And I went for an interview, and to my surprise, at the end of the table, it was Deloitte, a very big consulting firm, you know? So I started there doing consulting for various companies, and it was very simple back then. It's things like around processes, standards, you know, doing those little jobs. But I think I just had that, you know, I started thinking that, you know what, I've been just moving from one company to the next, doing a lot of consulting work. I now want to understand an industry. I want to get into an industry and understand, you know, what makes that industry work and become what it is, you know? So I joined IT audit. And that enabled you to move from one department to the other department, doing various audits, getting to understand how, you know, the systems are important and integral to that department, you know. So I think that got me going, and just understanding how the business makes its money, and, you know, how they're just so innovative and wanting to do more things. I just wanted to learn even more in this space. So I went after some time in audit. I decided that I'm more of a solution person. I'm not more of a person who would mark your homework and say, you know, you did this wrong and that wrong. I love solutioning. I enjoyed that quite a bit, to give people solutions and show them that if this is the issue in your area, this is how you can solve it. You know, technically, this is what you could do. And these are the controls that you could put in place. You know, I enjoyed that more, you know, that consulting. It was very much in me. So I thought it's best that I part and I move away from IT audit. And from that point, I went into information risk, and I got involved in the SDLC part. When you are building a solution, you know, what type of controls should we implement? So that is security by design. You know, when you're starting a solution, What are the sort of things should you be asking about from a security perspective? What sort of controls do you want to see in place? You know, what is the data that's being handled? How important is it, you know, to the company? What are the regulations governing that data or whatever it is that you're doing, the process that you're doing? And so, I love that because it was more about solutioning and making sure that we are helping the industry to build a solution with security in mind, you know, and not hamper and say that you can't do this or you can't do that, but find a way of how do we enable them for them to be able to digitize the solution, you know, without making it as if you can't go out there, there is hacking, there is this and that. How do we find a way around that? So the company that I work for had an incident. We had an actual cyber incident, and it cost the company about 245 million. And we really, really needed to go back and see what we have done wrong to enable this incident to happen. And that's when I got back into, you know, cybersecurity. That's when we started building, you know, our strategy. That's when we started building our controls in terms of, you know, what do we need to have in place in order to enable the organization that we're in and put in the right capabilities that will also secure us. So I think that got me going to see it, you know, in action, real, to say there are hackers. Incidents can happen, you know, that got me going. Because before, I mean, I remember when I was doing audits and you would just highlight a risk and they will tell you, so what, you know, what has happened, what has actually happened, what incident has happened. And we actually had a real incident that has happened over issues that were raised during audits, some of them, you know. So we started building the capability in terms of cybersecurity and making sure that there is awareness to say, hacking is there, cyber incidents are real, you know. So we started doing that. I joined the Africa part of it, working with various Africa, you know, regions, and making sure that we do have a security strategy, making sure that we do have solutions, you know, capabilities that will help us to prevent, to detect, and do all of that. I think at the end of 2021, I got the opportunity to get into security operations. And for me, it sounded very, very exciting. It sounded like a challenge. But I remembered certain conversations that we used to have, you know, as friends, to say, why are women scared, you know, to step up when opportunities come? Why are we scared to, you know, to jump into these things? Why do we think it's technical, you know? Why do we think we will not be able to make it? So when it did come by, I looked at this job opportunity and I thought, this is so exciting. You know, this is so challenging. This is such a great opportunity. I would love to do it. But for me to actually jump in, I had to go to one of my mentors, somebody that I always refer to. And he was an engineer by, you know, background of study. He was an engineer, a specialist in networking and also an architect. You know, he had contributed greatly in my career from 2015 going forward, you know, in making sure that he's building me. And I showed him and I said, look at this post. What do you think? Do you think I have a chance? He just read it. In 2 minutes time, he said, I don't see why you can't do it. You know, I tried to come up with excuses to say, but you know, this, that, and says, I honestly don't see why you can't do that. If you don't, you know, take this opportunity, you'll be letting yourself down. And I just saw it, I think just going back to your question, it was just about daring greatly, you know. It was getting into the arena and getting yourself dirty and really practicing all the years of experience that you have, you know, in risk management, in cybersecurity itself, you know, everything that you had accumulated to this point, just putting it into practice. So I think that is why I just wanted to dare greatly. I wanted to just take a chance on myself and see if I can make it in that space. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, I had to dare greatly.
Thank you. That did answer the question. I think it's an inspiring journey. The students are showing you a lot of love for me, coming over the airwaves in the student chat. And I saw a follow-up question from Mr. Bandu on, let's get to the salaries. But we're going to continue on with the next thing. So thank you for that. Building on that, I'd like to go and ask Marcia, what do you see happening in the Netherlands You know, Carissa spoke of the amount of initiatives that we see in South Africa. So we definitely at government policy level, we have, you know, we have various empowerment schemes and legislation which really speak to ensuring your balance of diversity in your workforce. But then we also have private sector and a lot of them initiatives. But in the Netherlands, you know, when we talk about female leadership in the private sector, what is your experience of that? And, you know, we've spoken about the technical and policy divides already in cybersecurity, but what kind of do you find there's quite ambitious schemes underway, or do companies tend to just go with the flow?
You mean like what the private sector is doing to really to get more women on board? Yeah. So well, what about the private sector? I find it a little bit hard, and I think, to be honest, it's easier for the private sector to hire people because the salaries are often much higher than in the public or for us, right? In government. Yeah. So what we see is that people that really want to contribute to society and cybersecurity, and you know, those are the people that we can find. But otherwise, you know, salaries are much higher in private sector. So I think they have less problems. But what we see also for private sector, but also our national cert, for example, they have boot camps, summer schools. They provide courses to improve your skills and knowledge on the topic. There are role models as well in order to, you know, so that you can also share your experiences and hear how other women were actually dealing with this. Yeah, maybe what is funny also, maybe I can tell you the story about what the problem I faced at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs when I had to get more cyber knowledge. There was no cyber knowledge in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and especially because we change every 4 years, we move to another job. We are really the generalists. So within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we, you know, it was very difficult to find cyber knowledge. So I started to go outside of the organization to see if I could find enough people with the knowledge on cyber diplomacy. And the funny thing was that those were especially young people, because they did some kind, maybe they already touched upon cyber in their studies on international relations or international law, or, you know, in different fields. So it was, for me, it was much easier to find this expertise with young people. So my team is super young, and so they all have their own topic, and they have their own space and responsibility, and that goes really well. Also, we have nowadays we have a big network of cyber diplomats at the embassies, and some of those were also people that went there without any knowledge. So so we really give them some guidance from The Hague, from the capital, to give them some guidance in the beginning, like how to move and how to understand the cyber field within that specific country. And every year they are coming back also to get a course and to deepen their knowledge on cyber. Yeah, so this is how we try to do it, and hope that by now building more cyber expertise within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that we can, in a few years' time, build on more expertise within the agency itself.
Thank you. What's important there is, I think it's perhaps something we don't talk about enough, is when it comes to cybersecurity, it's actually still a relatively immature field in terms of career fields through the ages. You know, it's probably 20 to 30 years sort of field at the most. And to a certain extent, we're really still feeling our way forward, learning what works, what doesn't, how to bolster the field. There's I think quite a lot of experimentation still going forward. Nompumelelo, from your point of view at an operational level, do you think there's a need for more women in cybersecurity? If so, why? Or do you think it's just you should have whoever rocks up that's really keen to do this job? What's your take on that?
I definitely do think there is, space for women in this field. So, like we said, diversity and inclusion. It's very important that we have diverse teams, different thinking, One of the things I just want to tell everyone on the call, especially ladies, is that, if you're looking for empowerment, you definitely will find it in cybersecurity, because here we're going to be breaking down class ceilings. And thriving in roles that were traditionally dominated by men, So if a woman does get into this field, definitely they would find themselves, being empowered and being able to operate in a space where previously thought men, thrive, So, also by working in cybersecurity, you become part of a movement that normalizes women in tech and opens doors for future generations. So that's just one of the things I want to say, empowerment. There is empowerment. And the second thing is high demand. There is a gap in skills. So definitely currently, there is a demand for cybersecurity skills. So this area is full of opportunities for you, ladies and gents, also on the call. There is high demand. If you are willing to learn, if you are willing to, to keep yourself learning and take opportunities, this is definitely the field that you should be going into. And there's, job satisfaction, there is a lot of complex problems that needs to be solved, So definitely you will be fully utilized as as someone in this career path. You'll never be bored. There is many new things coming up. I mean, now we're speaking AI. So many things are coming up. So if you want job satisfaction, this is definitely the field that you should be coming into. And there is flexibility. I mean, these days you can work from anywhere, working from home. You can structure your time, and make sure that you do have time for family and time for work, and apportion that accordingly. But there is the ability to be flexible in this job. And opportunities to grow and learn are big because this is a vast industry. It stems from just, if you're a developer, DevOps is the biggest thing now, making sure that there's security in what you're developing. And there's many things, there's many fields within this field. So I would say that definitely women, there is a place for you here. There is a lot of opportunities in this industry. So please come in and take your seat, in the table, and you will enjoy yourself. You will be empowered. You will be having, job satisfaction as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Nompumelelo. You touched on some things that I'm going to come back to there when we move into the discussion around barriers to entry in the cybersecurity arena. But one more question in terms of women, which I think is important, and it touches on all people, not just women. Najira, this one's for you. So, I think there's often, there's a lot of discussion around building cybersecurity resilience, whether it's at a national level, whether it's population resilience, and. I think a critical question, well, first a comment, and I find this often when I'm in discussions with people, is they equate resilience with survival, which I don't. I think resilience is the ability to survive something and thrive. That's resilience. It's about surviving and thriving. But, we've had a lot of discussions around, at population level, and, knowing how many Africans specifically are reliant on, especially cell phones, as their main ports of access to the internet. But digital technologies for banking, the banking that they do all for money transfers. Money transfer is not such a big thing in South Africa, but they're massive elsewhere in Africa. I think Africa's responsible for the majority of money transfers, mobile money that gets transferred the world over on a daily basis. So we've got this massive population. Everyone's using cell phones, possibly open internet, etc., to do this, and very often feature phones, not good cell phones, but ones that already got a lot of very dodgy firmware built in. But knowing that women are economically, demographically worse off than men are, they possibly, this is the hypothesis, have access to lower end devices, less data, less money for things like software. In line with this and your insights from Carnegie's sci-fi project, are women more predisposed to a population level cyber threats than men because of things like data deprivation, lower end devices, perhaps early exit from education?
Before I get into that, I wanted to be responsive to some of the comments that were coming in. They were giving the sense that, we focused a lot on, and I think there's an antiness about whether we're focusing on women only and diversity. Let me frame it this way so that it doesn't seem like it's a zero-sum game. When we focus on this inequalities that have happened that take a gender divide, what we're really focusing on is what it would mean for the rising tide to lift all boats. Therefore, when focusing on how women as such a majority group have been left out on, whether it's just the technical side or the political side, or all the things that really come together to make for society as we know it today, what we're saying in essence is that we are looking at all the things that haven't been gotten right for all of us to succeed. This is not a zero-sum game. So I thought this should be really important for any students who are grappling with what that means. And this is where that question you've asked, Noel, comes in. I've spent years studying gender digital divides, from access to use and everything in between, including even in women in tech as a talent pipeline. To some level, there's the tech pipeline issue where we need obviously to train more women in tech. But there is the issue of what kinds of workplaces are we going into? And this is something that plays out from something as simple as how public Wi-Fi hotspots are designed, where if women already in a society are not safe to be around, they're not going to be around the public Wi-Fi hotspot. Therefore, if that's the only other option to access internet without, buying expensive data, you can see what that will mean for divides that will exist. We've seen this play out in, again, affordability of devices. More and more as internet has become very important and mobile phones have become more important in African countries, governments have seen a way to start making a quick buck by increasing taxes. And this is a very strange problem we have seen across the continent where we need to get more people connected. But as we're doing so, the cost of connecting them is getting more expensive. So we're always having this gap that's widening. Now we have a situation, I would say, in 2024 across the continent where those who have not already been connected are either very lucky or very unlucky, in the sense that, do we now include them in this? We all know it's a cyber insecure space, it's a hostile environment sometimes online and all the spaces we operate in, or do they continue to miss out as we progress to connect the rest of us? And so there's very interesting policy questions that emerge there over and above just numbers. In the cyber vulnerabilities, yes, I mean, this is a social engineering issue first and foremost. I think the biggest threat we have found with cybersecurity, and this is why I love cybersecurity, is it's first of all about humans. It's about a social engineering technique that then gets you to be vulnerable, to part with your money, to give up something. So it's very much about people who have studied ways of trust. Here in Kenya, where we have the M-Pesa system, and therefore mobile money is a prevalent system, every day we're learning about a new tactic, a new approach that's being used to try and get people to part with their money. It's both analog, whether you're still using the small old school feature phones, to those who are using the super apps that have been developed. So across that spectrum, there are issues of cybersecurity. What has become a challenge, especially for finance, is one, everyone likes their money. No one wants to lose their money, right? So there's the imperative, whether you're getting people to use digital banking, e-wallets, anything under the sun, to make sure both the end user side and the supplier side are making sure they're keeping up to date with what could be the vulnerabilities. If you think about it that way, you find that in our traditional, maybe more conservative cultures, both in government, both in established corporate, the idea of getting somebody to test your system for you for vulnerabilities may be seen as counter to what you expect, strict and so on. And so there's a lot of mindset shift that needs to happen for us to actually build resilience. Whereas to your point, where cyber resilience is not just about it's about the fact that there's a possibility of something that will happen. we are accepting the risk is already there the moment we get online. Does not mean we panic, we become Luddites and not join the internet and use digital tools. It means we must demand, right from developer level to government policy level, regulator, consumer protection level, and end user awareness of how to evolve with these technologies as we get more and more hooked on them, to be aware of the latest threats that we may face on the end user, the latest vulnerabilities, and for companies and anyone who's supplying people with tools, whether it's in finance or anything else, to make sure that they're keeping up with all the possible risks and vulnerabilities that could emerge, including, and most importantly, the divide that starts to emerge where there are people using smartphones and then there are people who are still using old school feature phones that over time we stop developing for. You've probably seen with old WhatsApp, apps that if you have an older phone, at some point they stop giving you updates. What does that mean for a continent that still has so many people using those phones for a number of reasons, and not just poverty, but our phone can hold power for 3 days, and that's something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how you make sure that you have people who are working on this whole picture, this is where policy comes in, and this is where I'd make my pitch for cyber policy. It's really painting a picture about all the scenarios around which technology is being introduced, who's been left behind and why, who needs to, what interventions need to be taken in by whom and at what step, and how do you minimize, inadvertent risks and trade-offs. So, there's also a lot of work to be done there, and we can talk more about that.
The important point that you really make, and that was so eloquently answered, thank you, is, we can run the risk if we're not responsive, and if we don't keep our eyes on the consumer or the population level, of broadening the digital divide rather than shrinking it. We're hoping that the digital will be what enables us as Africans to leapfrog so many things, and catch up, but also potentially going forward to start leveraging actually providing services to the rest of the world, because we have a cheaper cost of production here, and actually being able to provide software services, cybersecurity services, everything remotely. So there's all these issues underneath it, but we cannot afford to take our eye off the ball, which is the population. Are we doing enough to keep the population up with where we are? And as the South African Banking Risk Institute says, the bank cybersecurity is so good in South Africa that it's much easier for cyber criminals to target the users of the banking apps and everything else. So it's a really important point. And talking about that digital divide, and the guys are going to love this. This is a general, non-gender related question. And it's for you, Carissa. What are the current barriers, to your mind? What do you see as the current barriers to entry to those wanting to have a career in cybersecurity? And by entry, I'm talking about barriers potentially to education as well as jobs. Because we'll hear a lot of people saying, I really want to do this, but I don't know how to get there. And even if I knew, can I do this? Why don't you take us through your thoughts on that, please?
So no, I think it's a great question. And I think there's been a couple in the chat saying, I'm very excited about cyber. How do I get in? I've got lots of experience in other areas, but I've found it really hard to break into cyber. And I hear this so often. Actually, I was at a conference a few months ago and I gave a talk. And after the talk, 3 gentlemen came up to me, one from the army, the other one was from marketing. And they said the exact same thing to me. They said, I'm desperate to get into cybersecurity. I just don't know how. And I said to them, well, you're doing a good job by having the conversation. So kudos to you to actually ask the question. Because I think, first of all, so many of us sit there and we don't ask the question, how do I do it? What's the practical steps to actually get in? And then it becomes this overwhelming fear to say, well, I'm from marketing. I've got no background in technology. I've got no background in cybersecurity. How do I actually get from where I am to where I want to be? And I said to one of the guys who was from marketing, I said, do you know I've hired someone from marketing into cybersecurity? He runs, he used to run in one of my previous organizations. He used to run my cybersecurity awareness program because he understood exactly how people thought and what their behavior was and how to adjust that. But when I interviewed him, on his CV, he didn't say, I am marketing and I have a marketing background, a marketing degree. This is all the sales I've done, etc. What he did was he took his experience and he ported that to how would it benefit cybersecurity. So he said in the interview, I understand how people think. You have a social engineering issue. that you need to solve. Therefore, my skills are exactly what you need for this role. And I think so many people out there put these challenges on themselves around the gap being too big. So the gap between my experience and my background being too big to port into cybersecurity, and they overwhelm themselves in just that sort of preconception and bias that the gap is too big. But someone said it earlier, I mean, cyber is so diverse. We need people from everywhere. Cybersecurity touches every aspect of everything. So we really need people with really diverse backgrounds. So I think the first point I'd say is don't sort of box yourself in and cause your own barriers to entry into the field. Because I think if you start having conversations, you understand how your background can port into cybersecurity, you're unlocking that challenge. I think the second thing that people often say to me is, you know, I really want to get experience, but there's just no jobs. There's no openings for anyone that has no background in cybersecurity. And I hear this so often, and I often tell the story. So I used to work with someone who had a passion for cybersecurity. There was no openings in the cybersecurity team, but he was so passionate about cyber that he decided, as part of his day job, he was going to make cybersecurity his job. So, you know, he was working in software engineering. He decided, well, I'm going to actually go and interrogate my own code, try and find holes in it. And when I find the holes, I'm going to show everybody else what I did. And he started teaching the development team around him about cybersecurity. What happened? Fast forward a few years later, a role became available and he was appointed. So I think we also create our own destiny with regards to using our passion, driving where we're going. And so the second sort of challenge I often hear, Noel, is there's just no opportunities for me. And that's a barrier to my entry. And I think what I want to say to the people out there listening to us, that it's only a barrier to your entry if you make it a barrier to your entry. It's what you put in that you get out from this field. And then the third one I think I would say is people often tell me they find a barrier to entry being the ability to network and to find the right support system. So I've seen actually people saying, I need a mentor. I'm really passionate to get into cybersecurity. And people often find that not having the right person to coach and mentor as a barrier to entry into cybersecurity. And I often tell people, like, if all of us in cyber are super busy, and I think everyone, you know, in technology is just super busy. And so, you know, I get a lot of people asking me for mentorship, etc. And I can only take on so many mentors. I can't take on hundreds and hundreds of mentors. Otherwise, my day job doesn't get done. So what I often say to people is, try and figure out the piece that you're worried about and ask the specific question. So if you think the barrier to entry is, I don't have a good enough network, well, you know, great. I'm part of Women in Cybersecurity Southern Africa. I can introduce you to a whole bunch of people. So don't necessarily just ask a one-pointed question about the barrier that you're facing. Ask a multi-dimensional question. So if you have a challenge, don't just ask for mentorship, ask for something specific. And maybe you'll be more there'll be more ability to respond to that specific issue than a general mentorship sort of request.
Thank you, Carissa. Really important insights there for the students. And pretty soon I'm going to open the floor to the students. So I want you to start thinking about, you know, your select questions. You know, as I've said, this is a one-off opportunity for you to tap into 4 fantastic minds in front of you. Nanjira, following on what Carissa's just spoken about, you know, one of my colleagues in South Africa recently, and this is Anna Collard, who some of you will know, actually made the point that to her mind, South Africa doesn't necessarily always have a skills problem. We have an experience problem. And that there's a huge challenge in transitioning from tertiary level, where you've now studied, into that all-important first rung of the ladder, that first job, that first internship, whatever it is. So my question for you is, I mean, as you work across tech policy, not just cyber, but tech in general, what is your sense of how good a job are we doing as African states in terms of creating mechanisms for our tech pipeline to go from tertiary into the world of work? Could we be doing better, or You know, what's your take?
See, this is why I love it, because it stops being technical and goes into the real stuff. I always tell folks the technological is political. I think if I take Kenya and South Africa as a comparison, we find in Kenya, for circumstances that are fascinating, very few people are leaving tertiary education expecting that they will get the job from a corporate. Circumstances of not pleasant ones have made it so. So we talk about hustling a lot. And as a result, what we have is that 80%, in fact, 90% or more of our corporate sector, so to speak, is MSMEs, medium, small, micro-sized enterprises. Because that jump, this system, we used to, you're told study hard, you'll get a corporate, you'll get your first job, and that narrative is being busted wide open in many places. And I feel in South Africa, very specifically, more than perhaps, or in Kenya, Nigeria, we've been more, exposed, maybe also because of political circumstances, to the fact that that is not a guarantee. And that has taken people to innovate a lot more. So you see a lot more startups, for example, that have been an interesting pipeline for tech talent. Especially Kenya, Nigeria, and in the financial sector. So there's a lot of innovation that has gone in there, and as a result, there's a lot of talent that has been has gone through the fire there, and then so companies like Microsoft and others, once they set up here, fortunately or unfortunately, they'll go and fetch this talent that has been built in a sort of entrepreneurial manner. I feel like, in comparison, SA may have not have had that in a sort of mass way, the way in Kenya and Nigeria has come to be. The reasons for that, as I mentioned, and I wanted to be very clear, is because things are not working the way we were taught that they were supposed to work. And I feel like this is a burden, especially of what has been called Gen Z today. The cans that were kicked down the road by all the generations, you're the guys who are facing them. And so you're being asked with all your talent, with all the skills, and having followed all the rules to figure it out. And nobody's giving necessarily the tools. So it's a challenging issue. And I really do empathize, because that pipeline of creating that our parents talk about is not the reality of the world we're living in today. So an awareness and bringing that to this conversation is so important, because maybe it's not, and I'm not saying we should send people out to the wilderness of entrepreneurship. We certainly cannot entrepreneur ourselves out of bad public policy. We love to say that here in Kenya. It is that we have to figure out, how do we still feel worthy of the skills we have in enterprise? And I think Carissa was speaking to it beautifully about what I am good at is this, and asserting that and figuring out where we're going to show up with our CVs and bring it into it, if it's employment you want, right? Yeah. And really challenging the system to adapt to the talent that is already there, because the big miss and risk we have now is this notion that we might have to retrain people who have already been trained, because the corporate functions, the government functions did not adapt enough. There's a creative conversation that does have to happen in the middle. As so what? Here we are talented, we're ready. Here are the systems that should be adopted, absorbing us, whether it's in entrepreneurship, whether it's in corporate as established, whether it's in government, and saying, what are we going to do for the fact that we have talent and it needs to be absorbed? It's a fundamental policy question, one that I feel like maybe now it's time for South Africa to join the rest of the continent in really agitating, and we can figure out what would be some creative strategies to make sure we don't make younger, and especially younger and younger generations, feel like there's no place for them in a world that needs their talent, their energy, and their skills.
Nanjeri, you've raised some important points, and I'm actually going to ask both Marcha and Nompumelelo to respond to some of the stuff that you've said. But I mean, when you said you can't entrepreneur your way out of bad policy, I think there's a sort of almost a sense amongst quite a lot of the youth that they've really got to hustle to find a job. There's no clear-cut pathway. And Marcha, this is where I want to ask you, are there better ways? What do you see happening in the Netherlands? Are there mechanisms in Dutch policy to transition students or youngsters into the workforce, like set down mechanisms? Or is this also kind of serendipitous process as it is here, where really it either comes down to how good you are at hustling, and you'll just keep applying and you'll work LinkedIn. What do youngsters in Europe do?
I think we have different problems, to be honest, because because to my knowledge, young people with this experience don't find a lot of trouble finding jobs, because there are so many jobs and there is so much needed in this field. you see other jobs maybe slowly getting less, but especially in ICT and everything related to cybersecurity, it's only growing. So, so what I think is, so what we often see is that, for example, private sector, but also government, are posting their vacancies on one internet site. So you can just go there and you just see if there's a job vacancy, yes or no. So it's much more. It's. I don't know how what it's like in your countries, but you know, to make it visible and to make the access possible for people to look for jobs, or to make to have big fairs where they can go to find, you know, where employers come to look for new talent. So yeah, I'm thinking,
Well,
but I don't see much of a problem, to be honest, to really find a job. There is so much needed. You know, there are vacancies everywhere. And I suppose, and I cannot imagine that it's not the same in your countries. But maybe it's like the that maybe the employers and the employees cannot find each other. I don't know. I'm very, maybe a question that I'm asking back to the panel, like, what do you think is the main reason?
That is
I
one
can
of the
jump in
main
there, Noel, real quick.
problems.
I was going to say, you know, I think a stark difference is that, you know, we are a continent of increasingly young who are many, and the opportunities that have evolved with us have not been many. So you find, unlike the Netherlands, where maybe things have progressed, both the digital era and sort of like populational dynamics, it's a very different. And so the continent of Africa has a very unique challenge, if you will, wicked challenge, wicked problem, you may call it, that may not be very relational in that sense, because, you know, we have so many young people, and they're only getting younger, and we're growing and growing in population. The opportunities for work, job security, just living a comfortable life are becoming trickier and trickier to find. So that even how an entry-level job, and I see this happen a lot, is framed, is talking about years of experience that are half your age. That's your starting point. And so it's a system that has not adapted to the talents and the capabilities. So our ability to play to our strengths is something that the continent has lagged behind on. Then you have situations where I say somebody joking about moving to the Netherlands. I'm like, yes, to a limit, because, you know, we can't all just frog march. So this is where, you know, for example, I say the technological meets the political, because if there's an opportunity to create jobs or create new ways of working and doing through technology, we will need our political ecosystems to change massively. We need to have an environment that allows then entrepreneurship to thrive if the corporate pipeline is limited, or the public policy pipeline or public employment pipeline is limited. But for that to happen, we're going to need both those who know the technical skills to make it possible and build. We need the political economy folks, political studies folks to come in there and help us work it up and agitate for the policies that will make it happen. We need all this talent that's coming out of the pipeline to be able to be allowed, really, to do what they can do well. And this is where the issue fundamentally is for our continent.
Awesome. Thank you, Nanjira. The students loving you. Yes, Marta, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because I thank you so much for your reply. And I also think we are in an opposite situation with young people, right? We see that our society is getting older. And I think having young people, especially in the future, is also like a chance. It's a chance of building that expertise and that layer of knowledge of young people that do have this, I don't know, you know, this energy to dig into something completely different, where we don't know what direction it goes into. You know, it's very, as you were saying, very exciting field as well. And yeah, I think you're right. And maybe we are, as the Netherlands, a little bit, we have a very digital society, but still we are also finding solutions. So it's a never-ending development that, and we are faced with threats like you are faced with threats. And I think in that respect, we didn't talk about that yet. The exchange is very interesting as well, to see what you are faced with and what we are faced with, and to see if we can also exchange our experiences. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to react upon. And but thanks a lot.
Thank you for those insights, Marsha. So I'm going to have to open the floor to the students, but before I do, Carissa, Nompumelelo, just tell the students quickly, this is my question to you, when your HR department, when you advertise a post, what does that process look like? Where do the students typically, not the students, the people who apply for jobs, where do they hear about the job? How do they find their way to you, in your experience?
So I'll go first. So all of our roles are advertised widely, LinkedIn, all the career portals, etc. Noel, I think where a lot of people fall flat in the application process is not tailoring their CV.
Yeah.
So they have a stock standard CV that they send, and honestly, to be blunt, it is laziness, because if you want a job enough, you will tailor your CV to the job to show your experience based on what the job profile is. So it takes another 5-10 minutes to tailor your CV before you submit it into the job. I think there's enough portals and information and sharing. It's about that application process and making sure you're giving yourself the best shot to land that job. And I can tell you, I've never, ever applied for a job without reviewing my CV, ever. And it's so important. So that stock standard applying for everything with the same CV is not going to be the working trigger to get you into cybersecurity. Tailor that CV, make sure you've got it going forward. And then I think the other thing I would say is a lot of companies, so the company I work for does do the LinkedIn, does the career portals, but some companies don't. They only advertise on their own career portals. So I think it's also, if there are organizations that you want to work for, companies that you want to work for, make sure you are keeping active, identifying new roles, because they're not going to come knock on your door and tell you we have a role. It's going to be advertised, it's going to be closed. If you don't pick it up, if you don't have alerts coming through to your mail, etc., you're just not going to pick up that the new role is available.
Carissa, some process advice there, especially around don't have a stock standard CV that you hand in, and learn the value of writing a nice covering letter as well. When you're applying for a post, give yourself that edge. Nompumelelo, what's your take?
I think Carissa has said everything, because we utilize the same, spots in terms of advertising. LinkedIn, we use our career site. So it's very good to always, think. I used to also dream of which companies would I like to work for, and I would target them. So that was my, that was my way of going about it. So I would know that I would love to work for this bank or.
Oh dear, I think that's load shedding. It's 3 minutes past 4, and it just bit for me. So let's wait until she comes back on. So there's a lot of questions that are sort of lost in the chat. So if you've got a question, please post it as a question in the chat, and you can also say if you want to who it's for. But I can't scroll all the way up because there's a lot of chatter going on. So now's the chance to start asking questions. Who wants to field this one? So some commentators believe that up to 40% of current jobs in the service industry, which IT and cybersecurity are in the service industry, are going to disappear or be impacted in the next decade. 40% of service industry jobs will disappear in the next decade due to the impact of artificial intelligence. What is your take on tech jobs here, on specifically cybersecurity jobs? I mean, we know that AI will assist malign actors in cyberspace greatly. It also assists the defensive teams. How do you see this panning out in terms of jobs going forward? Is it's going to impact cybersecurity jobs? Is everything, all the lower end of the stock, all going to be AI operated? What are we looking at? Who would like
I'll take a stab at it, Noel. So we've been obviously using AI. Big corporates have been using AI for a while. So in multiple roles that I've had, we've been actively trying to use AI. Obviously, it's becoming easier with time. And what I've seen is that there's first of all a bit of fear around AI, and it's almost like, when the advent of computers came up, computers are going to take jobs and computers are going to leave people redundant, etc. It feels like the same type of fear around artificial intelligence, that artificial intelligence is going to make jobs redundant. And I think it's the same practices that went into when the first computers were built. If you upskill, retrain, etc., there is no risk to you. And that upskilling and retraining, if you're in technology, if you're in cybersecurity, it's something you should be doing daily anyway. You shouldn't be using data from 10 years ago in cyber practices today because it's not relevant anymore. So you need to be updating yourself and upskilling all the time. So there's no difference with regards to being able to upskill, retrain yourself and port. The second point I'll make is that what I've seen with artificial intelligence is it's able to remove some of the mundane tasks. So we've got, for example, a level 3 SOC analyst able to do some work that a level 2 SOC analyst would typically usually do. Now that has allowed a lot more rapid response to incidents. But what it's also done is it's allowed the level 3 analyst to learn. Because what would have happened in the past, he would have taken something or she would have taken something and escalated it up to a level 2 analyst. Now the level 3 analyst is able to actually engage with that using artificial intelligence to do some type of triage that's, allowing them to understand. So for example, they get a piece of code and they ask the AI to write it in simple language. Now, previously, they would have taken that piece of code and they would have escalated it up the chain. All of a sudden, the first touch point has access to what is this code doing? Because the artificial intelligence is giving something back to say, well, this code is actually going to encrypt a piece of data. It's going to then, send an email to this email address. And, it explains it in simple English. And that person then learns. And if the team and the person that is using AI takes it as an opportunity to learn, I strongly believe that will allow level 3 analysts to become level 2 analysts and to become level 1 analysts because they're exposed to more data at their touch points than they were previously.
I love that. I think it's a really positive way of looking at how to adapt to a consistently changing or hyper technology change, which is what we live with. How do we keep securing our own personal futures and the futures of our companies or if we work for the government of our countries, etc.? How do we do that? How do we remain adaptive and remain positive? And, of course, universities love to tell you it's about lifelong learning, and it is. But a lot of that lifelong learning isn't sitting and doing degree after degree. A lot of it's just in time training. Vary your training is something I would absolutely advise. So I'm going to bounce up this chat stream here, and I'm going to actually Lebogang Mobaso asks the question, which qualifications and certifications are commonly looked for when applying for an entry-level position? And sure, I think this is just one of the major challenges for students or would-be entrants to the field. Never know, where do I start? What do I need for an entry-level position? Because we all see this on LinkedIn. The HR office says entry-level position, they want the person to have a CISM and a CISP plus a 4-year degree, which is crazy. You can't do that. So, Carissa, what does an entry-level qualification look like? Typically.
For me, depending on what you're going to be doing and where you want to go. I mean, in my case, I would see your degree, whatever degree that you come with, A+, N+, it gets you in. Those are some of the qualifications that can get you in the door, you having your degree or you coming in with your A+ and N+, because it introduces you into the field. And the more you get into the field and you get more understanding, it is then that you can choose in terms of, do I want to now go into security? Then I can do security plus, just the foundational level of what is security about, the introduction into security. Because, I mean, even if you go and write some of these certifications, let's say CISA or CISM or, CISP, they require a lot of experience. I do not believe that you coming straight from varsity, you will be able to write and pass CISP You know,
No.
you do need a level of experience, you know, to get into the field and get comfortable and be able to also choose in terms of where do I want to go. So that's what happened for me, you know. You get your degree and you get into the field. There's just foundational training that you can do, certificates that you can get just to solidify you, to make things even more practical. For me, that was A+, N+ type of certifications that I did after understanding where I'm in, what is required, you know, and that gave me confidence to be able to go to users and assist them with their various problems. But as I was growing into the field, I could now say, you know, I would like to get into the certification because it's good, you know, like your CSIS are good, your CISP are good, your CISMs are good, so many of them, they're very good. But I don't think just by starting off, you can get CISP, you know, you do need a level of training, a level of experience, you know, because they do ask technical questions and it requires your experience. So I think come in with your degree, but be willing to learn, be willing to get that technical training that something like an N+ or A+ has to offer, just to get you solidified, you know, with your theory that you get from, you know, the school where you're coming from in terms of varsity, but those ones, they can solidify you from a technical perspective. Getting to understand the industry that you're in, it's quite important, you know, because, you know, it's quite crucial to understand that business that you're in and what they're trying to achieve and where they're going, for you to come with innovative ideas in terms of how do we move them forward, how do we enable them. You know, IT or cybersecurity, it is about enabling business, you know. So, you know, you still need to learn, you know, what that business is about, where they're going, what are they hoping to achieve, you know, how can they get the competitive edge that they need. So I think just get in and just be willing to learn and understand the industry that you're in and find your way in terms of where do you want to grow from here? What is my passion? You can easily find your passion, you know, the people who can take you into that direction. But I don't think just you coming straight from varsity, you would be able to pass some of those qualifications. You can get into security. Those are just foundation. They give you the foundation, the principles, you know. They can help you, all the foundational ones, they can help you get in the industry. But I think you do need the experience in that industry, the understanding of what that is about and how you can contribute into that industry.
Thank you. Thank you, Nompumelelo. Nanjira and Marcia, I'm going to point this one at you, and it is from Katlego Makabo, who says, how can a cybersecurity strategy be adapted to the significant presence of women on social media and e-commerce platforms? This strategy should aim to raise awareness of potential threats and risks, whilst implementing protocols that prioritize safeguarding women's privacy, dignity, and freedom. I think that's a really interesting question. So
I was wondering if it was somebody's exam question. I was listening to it.
Yeah. Would you like to have a go?
Well, I think the bigger issue there is about gender responsiveness in strategies. And whoever is trying to, either if you're trying to write your assignment, I can give you some pointers. It's cool. The idea of gender responsiveness is really figuring out at every stage of a proposed strategy or intervention how that affects, right? Like you rightfully pointed out, who's using a platform, how they're using it, what data do you have that shows you, do they log off sooner? Do they reach a certain point in usage of a platform and jump off or cease using it? That kind of data is very important to help in building that kind of strategy. I think otherwise it's a bit amorphous, but there's the broader concept of understanding gender responsiveness in ICT policies could be very helpful in figuring out that very specific strategy intervention sort out.
Thank you. Marcia, do you think that we hold big tech responsible enough for certain safety issues related to big tech? And I'll put it this way. So, probably obviously using dating apps at your own risk, but where there's ongoing issues that have been reported, do they do enough? Do Facebook and Twitter perhaps do enough? We've seen campaigns mounted against specific people in society, doxing. journalists being targeted, etc. And Twitter's particularly bad at allowing this to go on. Whereas Facebook, we've had numerous issues with Facebook Marketplace resulting in crime. From a policy point of view, when we're looking at these kinds of strategies, I mean, we can implement wonderful strategies as countries or as governments, but if we don't get big tech to cooperate, it's very difficult.
I agree, and I think indeed women are often also victim of cyber violence or cyber criminality, like cyber stalking, privacy breaches, or online intimidation. There are discussions ongoing with the platforms. I think we try to move it more through algorithms to see how they use their algorithms and to I think there is still so much that we need to do with the big tech and the platforms. It's definitely not enough yet, and there is EU regulations also to also limit the influence of the platforms. And I think this is an ongoing discussion we have, and that will continue. It's not done. It's not over. It's just a beginning, and it will. We will have to talk to each other to also to decide like who has to do what, who is responsible for what, and so it's I know it's a very limited answer that I'm giving you now, but it's so can I leave it to that, because it's it's mainly with the Ministry of Economic Affairs, so it's not that I follow this super closely, so
Right. So thank you. You've raised important points, and Jera, obviously, I'm going to ask you to come in there as well. But fundamentally, when I often talk with my students about non-state actors, there's always a thing about it's a hacking group or criminal group, or it's just but big tech also, or all technology companies are also non-state actors, especially if they start wielding some kind of undue influence in cyberspace, and also good influence. I mean, one commentator in the US says, we must remember governments can only do so much in cyberspace, but it's companies that, like Microsoft, have the ability to actually bend cyberspace. They have so much talent and such deep reserves at their fingertips. So we cannot underestimate the power of especially the really big technology companies in cyberspace. And how do we get them to sometimes take responsibility? We're having an argument in South Africa right now about how they're killing our local media, using media content but not paying for it, and actually killing off the free press in South Africa. What do we do? When it comes to getting them to take responsibility, perhaps when tech becomes harmful?
This is such a salient issue for the continent. The strategy we've seen so far have been extreme in trying to get the big tech companies accountable. One being like the example of Nigeria, when I think it was Twitter at the time, when they did not, capitulate to some demands, they shut them down for a couple of months. And we see a lot of that happening in India as well. And this is really just speaking to, again, what I was saying about the need for a lot more people working in tech and governance, or global governance issues, is we have to also prime our governments to respond, to really assert themselves in those spaces. What is happening is big tech companies see themselves now playing at the same level as our governments. So as users, sometimes they don't see us until we go through some entity like a government. I know, South African Parliament tried to summon Facebook. I wish they'd followed through with that. I wish there was a seriousness that would go into that. We've seen Australia push back, for example, on that issue of killing local media, and they found an agreement. But this is why we need to prime our governments. I think, it's really unfortunate today across the continent to find we've been primed and conditioned to think, let's leave government aside. let them do the government thing, and then we'll figure our stuff on the margins, and it's just not working. The idea that we could form strange bedfellows, say, between corporates and activists is not necessarily going to work, because at the end of the day, the actor who has the legitimacy conferred to them on governance is our governments. So we need to figure out, why do we have ministries of ICT that do not have people who have, been through this ringer, not in this conversation, for example, and figure out how we start using those systems that we have that should represent us better to make sure that we're being served better by these platforms. Because at the end of the day, we're the last frontier market. There's a huge demand to connect us, to get our data, to get us. So we are the prize, and we have to start acting like that. And so we need a lot of creative thinking that will go into challenging us to play to our strengths, and not just on an individual country basis, but we'll take South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, for example, to come together and push for that. Because can you imagine if those three came together? That would be formidable. And that way we'll be able to start saying we need to be served better by these technologies that are supposedly, connecting us. And that's some serious work streams that we need to talk more about and think through more.
Thank you, Nanjira. I saw a question by, I think it was, Nati Chabalala, about SMEs and procurement, etc. Nati, can I ask you to post that question in tomorrow's panel, where we're going to be discussing the state of cybersecurity in Southern Africa, and we're going to have 3 really great speakers from industry talking on that. And I think it's a good question for that panel, if you don't mind. Because we're a little bit pushed for time. So I'm going to a question here, and it's something we alluded to earlier, and it's sort of a little bit back to our diversity conversation by Zodwa and Modiga. What is the age restriction for, it says a women in industry, cybersecurity, but I'm going to ask you in terms of, are we ageist in the tech industry? And, what is, I know in the UK, for example, I've seen a lot of programs to try and bring people from previous careers in mid-career and get them transition into cybersecurity to meet that skills workforce gap, but also because there's some careers that really be people's way of thinking. For example, engineers and the ability to be so process and solution orientated transition really well into tech cybersecurity. Nigeria, I'd like to say actuaries as well, because of these, attention to detail, the mathematical reasoning. So let's get your thoughts as a panel on, do you think that there's ever a limit or an age limit to transitioning into a tech career? Because my initial take is not really. And do you see value in late entry workers into for tech and cyber, AI, that type of thing? Carissa.
Sure. I mean, I think there's always an opportunity to transition. And like I said, I think because technology is so diverse, cybersecurity is so diverse with the things that we touch, you can port a number of previous backgrounds into cybersecurity. Like I spoke about the marketing, porting into awareness and training. I've hired a military person into my cyber defense team because they're just really calm under a stressful situation. But I think that it takes a lot of initiative, and and I'm not going to sugarcoat this and say it's going to be an easy transition. It's not going to be an easy transition, especially if you've got no background in technology to be able to port in. You have to put in the work to be able to make the transition. And I think there's a couple of useful resources that have been popped on the chat. There's been a lot of people that have been asking, how do I get access to training? What things should I be doing? All of the big technology companies have free training. So Microsoft, AWS, Google, they all have free training on technology and on cybersecurity. And you can go and do these online courses. The thing I really like about testing out free training is that tech and cyber is so broad. You may try one thing and realize, oh my goodness, I hate it, but don't stop, because there's so many other aspects that you could potentially test out. And with free training, you can actually then get exposure to a lot of different things and find your niche. And then once you find your niche, something that interests you and excites you, then it won't become a chore to learn a new skill or a chore to learn to be able to port. You'd get interested in learning more about it. So I think use the opportunities that are free, that a lot of the big tech companies have out there. Try different things, try different approaches, different courses, skills, etc., until you find something that you enjoy, and then try and get some skills based to be able to port in. So I'm not going to say you've done HR before and therefore you're a natural transition into cybersecurity. It doesn't work like that. You have to put in some work, but it's not impossible. And it's not impossible at any age. It's just about the effort that you're going to put in to make it doable. And I think there's so much of opportunity out there, especially once you get to some of the higher certifications. I mean, the big corporates are jostling to find people that are highly certified on cybersecurity in cloud environments. There's just not enough people out there. We are fighting each other for these skills. And then we have people in the chat that are talking about, looking for work and not being able to find work. So there's a marriage here that we can make, but it takes initiative and it takes the ability to reskill yourself.
Thank you so much, Carissa. I've just looked at the time and I've realized I'm going to have to wind up the panel, unfortunately. So I'd like Carissa and Nanjera and Nompumelele to think about, I'm going to give you each a little while to think about what you're going to close with. And Marika, I'm not going to give you a chance to think about what you're going to close with. I'm going to use one of the students' questions because I think it's an appropriate question as well for the panel. So if I can start with you, here is the question, and the question is from Zoduma Ngiri, and it is, how can we increase the collaboration, mentorship, coaching, and small to medium enterprise development and partnership opportunities between South Africa and the Netherlands, or between different countries? Which platforms exist, or which platforms need to be developed and facilitated? So it's about increasing collaboration, mentorship, coaching, enterprise development, and partnership opportunities between South Africa and the Netherlands. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a very simple question to answer. No, it's a very difficult one. I mean, it's just to have a plan straight away. I think there are many opportunities, at least for, and maybe, yeah, I'm not sure how it works exactly in your countries, but what we often see as well is to get the experience, like if you finalize your studies, to get an internship at a company or a governmental agency, to at least have some work experience already, and that makes a big difference. So I can also imagine, but to my knowledge, I haven't seen such an exchange of maybe international companies where people can have mentorships or internships to get some kind of work experience. Yeah.
It's certainly a topic for future discussions, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a very interesting one, actually, to just sit together with several people and just make a plan, right? Because because I would be interested, I think, also to think along and to think further in this area. I don't have a plan ready at this point. I don't know about this plan, such a plan as well. But I would say, yeah, I can imagine some kind of exchange with private sector or big international organizations might be very interesting. And maybe if you don't mind, I just quickly wanted to, what might be interesting also to look into, and that's still answering your latest question, are the European regulations that we have with regards to platforms, the Digital Services Act and the Digital Market Act. And so that is, those acts are there for a safer digital space with fundamental rights respected on the one hand, and the other hand, establish a level playing field. I just looked it up to foster innovation, growth, and competitiveness. So it's really like making sure that rights of users are respected. So it's interesting to have a look, and also maybe if it's it could be of use. But sorry that I don't have a clear plan, but definitely interesting to think along.
Thank you, Marcia. Do you have, is there anything else you'd like to say before we close?
No, but I really like the discussion and to hear from my co-panelists all the experiences they have, and actually I would love to have another opportunity to speak with you, and yeah, so that would be great. And so I'll ask Joost Bunke if we can set up, maybe if you have time, such a meeting. That would be great. So thank you very much, and also good luck to all the students. It was a great pleasure to be with you today.
Much thank you. We know you're a very busy woman, and we've really enjoyed your time and your inputs. Thank you so much. Okay, Nanjira, would you like to make
the big pressure of the closing keynote, right? You have to start in conclusion, and 5 sentences later, you're still speaking. I think I wanted to maybe a parting shot. I saw some comments in the chat, you know, the folks who have studied for things that industry in the continent has not yet sort of evolved into. There's somebody who talked about cryptography, folks who are in geospatial engineering, and there aren't ready jobs for these great talents. And it's really a tragedy. First of all, you're not the problem. I need that to be very clear. And there's a possibility. So I was encouraging those folks, and I would encourage others. There's also writing what you see as possibilities into existence. All too often, the stories of what Africa could be are written for us. And we need a lot of people who can write about what they're seeing from the perspective and the expertise that they have. So maybe as a sort of suggestion for the school at the time is maybe set up a blog where folks can willingly post 300 words, 400 words about what they think cryptography could offer the field of cybersecurity. Just exercise ways to tell the stories of what is possible, because that's another way we create a future that we don't yet have here. And I think the future is bright, and I look forward to seeing all of you graduate on the other side. Thank you so much for having me.
Nanjira, thanks. That was a beautiful message. Carissa.
So I just wanted to pick up on what you said in the beginning, Noel, about resilience. And I want to congratulate all the students for taking the initiative, first of all. The fact that you are here and you have a background in, social sciences or, humanitarian studies, or I've seen so many things in the chat where, completely non-tech related degrees, and that's where your background is. A big congratulations for you to take the initiative. That's the first point. And then coming back to Noel's, resilience is not just surviving, it's thriving. And the comment around the young talent we have in Africa versus the aging talent in Europe, I think the opportunities are here for Africa as a continent for the taking. So I really encourage you to make the most of the course that you are doing. A big thank you to my panelists and to Noel and the team who've been working so hard behind this. I know the amount of work that's gone into making this a reality. Make the most of it. Really make the most of it, and your destiny is in your hands.
Thank you, Carissa. That was a wonderful message. Nompumelelo, we'll give you the last shout.
I was so encouraged to just see such programs for myself, just to see that there's a lot of this coming out. So I would just encourage every one of you to say, use this type of platforms to just get to know what's happening in the industry, who are the people in the industry, and keep knocking on those doors. Do not get easily discouraged, and you have something special to offer. Whatever background you are from, you have some sort of experience that is required in today. There's a lot of innovation going on, a lot of digitalization that is going on, a lot of automation of processes so that we can be more efficient in how we do things. So definitely there is a lot in this space. I just want to encourage you to keep on tapping on doors, keep on going on these programs and exposing yourself, to whatever opportunities are out there. I've seen that there's a question for myself. I think I will answer it next time around controls. I was just laughing at that that question, but I just want to say that doors are open. Make use of whatever opportunities that you get. We are definitely in the industry. We want to pull you in because we are looking for people like you who are innovative, who are looking for new ways of how do we approach something, because the older generation still think in the olden way, but you guys are so exposed to the technology, and you're so way advanced, you know. I've seen TikTok, the things that people are doing in TikTok, creating a lot of creators out there. So come in and show how we can create in this space and make it even more safer.
Lovely message from Pumalele. I would like to thank all four of our panelists today, and I'd like to ask the students to give them a big hand, please. These are very hardworking ladies. They're industry experts, they're leaders, and they have given so heartily of their time and their insights, and I can't thank you enough. I think the students are going to go away with a lot to think about today, and I really enjoyed the panel chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for making time for us, for sharing these insights, and we wish you well. Yeah, we know you're in a high end career, a lot of burnout. So, yeah, our hearts are with you too, and thank you for the commitment that you always display to mentorship and giving of yourselves. And thank you, ladies. Awesome women, awesome examples to all of us on how to move forward. Thank you so much, and to the students. It's been a long session. The two gentlemen who are going to take over now are going to give you a rundown of how the course is going to run. You can still ask your questions. Make sure that you're in there so you know exactly what you've got to do, and you can ask those questions. And we've got a long road together, but I think we got off to a great start today. And thank you for hanging in there. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, and it's over and out for our panelists from here and for me. And we welcome Dr. Michelle Rademacher in. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I think it's now Bruce taking over for a couple of minutes, and then I'll follow up on him.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Very much appreciated. I can already tell you that it's very difficult to follow a panel as good as the one that we've just seen. So it was a real pleasure listening to the expertise. And what a tremendous panel. And actually, the panelists also covered a number of things that I would normally be talking about. So I'll be able to have a little bit of duplication, but it'll be tough to actually say it as well as they did already. So let me dive right in and say a very warm welcome to, of course, Your Excellencies, the other distinguished guests, and all of the students. And of course, the students, you are our main target audience for this, and very much also our distinguished guests. Welcome to the launch of SANCS. So this is the South African Netherlands Cybersecurity School. You wouldn't know that if you weren't already here. So it's, I think, a foregone conclusion that you're already motivated to take part in this. Before I dive into some of the details and then also share some of those details with what Michelle will talk about immediately after this, I'd also like to thank a couple of people rather specifically. So during the proceedings so far, we've already had a chance to thank a number of the great people that we've been working with. This has been the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Hague Center for Security Studies, the Center for AI Research in South Africa, Stellenbosch University, and several other groups as well. And it's worth noting that, of course, for the most part, this has been unpaid or pro bono work, which has been, in a sense, additional aspects of their existing job. So it's really been an honor to work with all of these people. In particular, in the South African team, I'd like to point out that Noelle, who you saw as the moderator for the previous session, has really been a very significant driving force in the background, along with Nanette Saas, who you've also seen briefly on camera at the beginning of this. So the whole thing, the whole of SANCS actually started out, of course, with the germ of an idea. And this was a discussion between Noelle and Joost Bunk, who you've also seen right at the beginning of this. And of course, very strong support by the back organizations for both. On the South African side, I can say that Noelle put a tremendous amount of effort into growing the discussion, socializing the discussion within the university and within the larger cybersecurity community within South Africa and SADC in general. And that was already more than a year ago. So things really picked up speed, largely thanks to her with, as I say, Nanette's help as well. I got involved from the perspective of being the director of computational thinking for artificial intelligence. and this is part of the Center for AI Research within South Africa. So there are a couple of different bodies doing AI research in South Africa, and it's a real pleasure for us to be working at the intersection between AI and cybersecurity, which is where it, as they say, the rubber meets the road. So in addition to Noel's strong work in this, as I say, Nanette was heavily involved as well, also pro bono. She worked very closely with Noel. And in particular, Nanette was involved in the initial soft launch, and many of the dignitaries that you saw here as well were involved directly in participating in that. And now we're at the point of the actual launch. Nanette was furthermore involved in the program and in the communications and public relations. So thanks again to them. We'll see them on camera at the end of my session here as well. So let me dive right in. And I'd already prepared to talk a little bit about the cybersecurity landscape. I think a little bit of what I would normally say is somewhat redundant because we've had such excellent speakers already, both hearing from the ambassadors, and of course the panel that we just heard was really significant in that regard. So it's fair to say that cybersecurity is probably one of the three hottest topics that we could possibly confront nowadays, certainly in the tech industry. The other ones, if you're curious, would be artificial intelligence, AI, and quantum computing. And quantum computing is a fair bit further down the road, but nonetheless will have a similar impact on how we do things to artificial intelligence and, of course, cybersecurity in general. Now, as several of the speakers have pointed out, the whole notion of cybersecurity isn't just about the nerdy things. I can already say, without insulting anyone, I hope that the nerdy things, although they're important, they aren't the be-all and end-all. And I say that as someone who comes from the technology background of all of these things. But it does connect with various other super important things related to supply chain safety, food security, diplomacy, and so on. Furthermore, cybersecurity issues cross borders instantly. So there's no way that we can sit in South Africa and be happy about purely defending our own cyber borders. There's no such thing as a cyber border, and it basically is a problem for everyone once it's a problem somewhere on the planet. So there's this clear need for covering all of these aspects as well. It's fair to say also that the barrier to entry for hackers is tremendously low. I'm not advocating at all for anyone to do anything evil, but hackers are able to do things with a very modest laptop and perhaps some cloud time. So a small amount of money, unfortunately, leads to the ability to extort people and so on. The barrier for entry for defenders is much, much higher. So this is actually a completely different set of problems. And of course, there's a need to bring all kinds of people into this, as I said, not only from the management perspective and the diplomacy side of things, but also to recognize the fact that a lot of cybersecurity problems are an ideal workplace to bring the talents of neurodiversity to the fore as well. As all of our speakers also pointed out, this is a very male-dominated industry. And it's not the sole focus to correct that within SANCS, but it is a very significant focal area for us to be able to pull that straight. And in that sense, it's a real pleasure to see that we've got a very significant cohort of young women who have signed up for this as well. And as Nanjira said in the previous session, this is not a zero-sum game. So this is not as if we're cannibalizing from one subgroup of people who want to participate in this in order to facilitate others. There's more than enough for everyone to grow within this. So back to cybersecurity education. The reason that you're here, of course, is that there's an extreme shortage of cybersecurity defenders. These are not just the technical people. There are also lots and lots of degree programs and diploma programs. But it's also very quickly recognized that many of them cost a significant amount of money, but also many of them consume at least 1, if not 4 and more years of time for you to study and then gain traction in that. As Noel also already pointed out, typically South Africa doesn't have just the skills problem. I mean, to an extent, we do have the skills problem, but we also have an experience problem. So it is recognizable that that's a significant barrier. Now, SANCS, the school that you're taking part in, is of course filling some of these gaps, and these gaps are significant. One of them is that SANCS is for free. So that's a real pleasure. Thanks, of course, to the sponsorship from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, and of course, time sponsorship from the many other parties that we've heard from today as well. Keep in mind that this will be a very intense short course, and I think many of you will have already attended the Q&A session a little bit more than a week ago. Very, very important. That was fortunately also recorded, so you'll be able to go back to view that. That is already on the at the website for SANCS, along with the frequently asked questions. Very important there as well. Now, how to get the most out of SANCS, and this is where it'll also be followed on from by some words from Michelle in just a moment. But it's fair to say that one of the most important things, and I tell this to all of my students also in courses that I'm giving, is it's very important to attend all of the lectures. So attending all of the lectures, will of course get you the certificate of attendance. Taking part in the challenges, that's actually even more important from a personal perspective, and that will get you the certificate of participation with successful participation. So I can't emphasize enough the fact that we've actually pushed the schedule in such a way that this is typically outside the normal working hours, and that should be a strong facilitator for you to be able to diligently attend all of them. I would say going the extra mile also involves reading the additional material, rewatching the lectures. There's a reason that they're recorded. Not just joining the lecture and then leaving it running in the background, but actually being fully engaged in this and being able to ask questions of the lecturers and so on. So we've got a fantastic lineup of lecturers, as you will have seen already, and many of them are in this call today, and all of them are interactive people that have donated their time in order to be able to present this. And then the very last thing that I'd like to just briefly mention before I hand over to Michelle is, of course, this question of how do I get a job? And this, of course, took up, let's say, the last 15 or 20 minutes of the previous panel's discussion, because at the end of the day, this is one of the most important things that all of you would like to get out of this. And Carissa couldn't have said it better in the sense of putting your CV out there, your resume out there, but also certainly tailoring it. So the worst thing that people do is have a single resume or CV that they've prepared perhaps even some years ago and send it out in bulk emailings. That simply doesn't get traction. So that's very, very important. We'd also like you to remain part of the SANCS community online. So that will help give us feedback, of course, for tailoring this going forward, but it'll also put you in touch with other students. And there's always that notion of paying it forward and paying it back. Some of you will come across job opportunities that you can actually advertise to your fellow SANCS graduates or point them to. And what we also hope out of this is that many of you will actually take the plunge and be an entrepreneur in this and actually start up something that provides cyber services in one of the many countries that you come from, and hopefully even internationally. So on that note, let me thank you and thank, of course, all of the previous speakers, and I'll hand it over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Bruce. I'll put on my camera. Yeah, so we're almost at the end of this long session. Interesting, interactive, really great. And I think it shows also a bit of the ideas behind the school. So I allude a bit to that as well. So the idea of the school is actually not to make you the super specialist or coder of software code in cybersecurity, but to give you a flavor of the breadth and depth of what cybersecurity all entails. So we have lectures on accountability, on forensics, on policy developments, on legal issues, on what is the SOC, and many other things, on post-quantum crypto. So it's a kaleidoscopic number of lecturers from people all over the world, which I'm very proud of, that we have those. So we have 20 lecturers, more or less. And as Bruce already said, you'll earn a certificate if you follow 75% of the lectures. That's the minimum. And what we will do every day after the one or two lectures that are being scheduled is that we also have a quiz. So a quiz not to win a prize, but at least to test yourself a bit whether or not you understood the lecture a bit. So I think I should encourage you to also take part in that one, because as Bruce already said, You learn by start repeating and by questioning yourself on the lectures that you have. So this is a bit of, it's a fun part, and at the same time, it is also useful from an educational point of view. Besides the lectures, which are, say, kind of one-way street, and you can sometimes, of course, ask a question, but with so potentially 1,800 participants, not everybody can ask questions and get an answer. There's also another opportunity, I think, is that we're going to play a serious game. It's a tabletop, and normally it would be a tabletop, but what we did at HCSS, we designed it into a digital version of it. So it's now possible to have a couple of thousand players at the same time. And what we're going to play, and I'll explain more later this week, is the question is how to make Africa more cyber resilient. And you'll be confronted with a lot of terminologies that will be explained by itself. You can play for yourself. You can also learn from the other players. And so it will be kind of self-propelling learning opportunity. You can either log in for 2 hours or 20 times 5 minutes. Doesn't matter. Or if you want to play 4 days in a row, it's possible too. Sorry. And it will encourage you to think more structural about what cybersecurity is and what it all entails. And last but not least, after the lecture series of some 20 lectures, there's some teamwork that will enforce you sorry, to be creative, analytical, learn to deal with deadlines, and of course, yeah, work together actually. And we'll explain more later on how we deal and judge the solutions of your team. But it will entail that you have to provide a video explaining the solution that you as a team made, a maximum 3 minutes video that will be then at some point posted on YouTube. And the teams with the most likes will be selected first. Sorry. Yeah, maybe at last point, I think it's also mentioned already by Bruce. We would like you to keep engaged. So there's a LinkedIn community, and it will be shared throughout the course as well. Be a member of that one, follow it, help each other to get to the job that you want. First, I would say enjoy the course. It will be fascinating because you will hear things you never heard about, probably, from big names in the industries. So from the UN, from businesses, from EU Parliament, from Cyber Peace Institute in Geneva, and of course also from HCSS. But anyway, let me close here. For the rest